Beatrice tightened her grip on the flower basket's handles, taking a deep breath before ringing the bell of the impressive penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side. The doorman had already announced her arrival, but her heart still pounded in her chest. At 27, she had built her small flower shop in Greenwich Village with sweat and determination. But clients like Adrian Moretti still made her nervous. "Come in," came the deep voice from the other side of the door. Beatrice pushed open the heavy wooden door and found herself in a setting that looked straight out of a design magazine. The apartment was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of Central Park. But what struck her most was the heavy silence that hung in the air, as if the very luxury had stifled any trace of life. "Leave the flowers on the coffee table and you can go," Adrian said without turning around. He stood before the window, his hands in the pockets of impeccably tailored dress pants. Even from the back, his posture radiated authority and a coldness. That made Beatrice feel like an intruder. She placed the basket on the glass table, but something stopped her from simply leaving. Maybe it was the loneliness emanating from the man, or maybe it was her own stubbornness, but Beatrice heard herself speak. "They're Cattleya orchids, Mr. Moretti, native to Brazil, as you requested." She gently touched one of the petals. "This one has a shade of purple reminiscent of a sunset over the Grand Canyon, with small golden flecks that look hand-painted." Adrian finally turned around, and Beatrice felt a shiver run down her spine. The man was devastatingly handsome, with dark brown hair and deep blue eyes that seemed to pierce right through her. But there was something in that gaze that disturbed her, a hardness, a distance that didn't match the perfect beauty of his face. "I didn't ask for poetic descriptions," he said, his voice as sharp as ice. "I simply asked you to deliver the flowers." Beatrice felt her face flush, but she didn't lower her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Moretti. It's just, well, flowers deserve to be appreciated for more than just their appearance." Something flickered across Adrian's face. Surprise, perhaps, but it was so quick she couldn't be sure. He approached the table, and Beatrice noticed how he moved with a natural elegance, each step calculated and precise. "So you must be new to the business," he said, examining the orchids. "Learn a lesson. Clients don't want your opinions. They want efficiency and silence." Beatrice bit her lower lip, a reaction she always had when she was nervous or annoyed. "With all due respect, Mr. Moretti, I've been working with flowers for 5 years, and in my experience, people who truly love flowers want to know them, not just own them." Adrian raised an eyebrow, clearly not accustomed to being contradicted. "And you don't think I love flowers?" "I think you appreciate beautiful things," Beatrice replied, surprising herself with her own courage. "But loving is different from possessing." For a moment, silence stretched between them, tense and charged. Adrian studied her with those piercing blue eyes, and Beatrice had the strange feeling that he was trying to decipher some enigma. "You're impertinent," he said finally. "I'm honest," she retorted. To her surprise, Adrian gave a smile, small, almost imperceptible, but a smile nonetheless. Honest and stubborn, a dangerous combination. Beatrice felt her heart race again, but this time it wasn't just nervousness. There was something magnetic about this man, something beyond the obvious beauty. Even with all the coldness, she could sense a depth that he was trying to hide. "I need to go," she said, picking up the empty basket. "I have other deliveries to make." "Of course." Adrian turned his attention back to the orchids. "Tell your boss the flowers are adequate." "I am the owner of the flower shop," Beatrice corrected, heading for the door. "Oh," he seemed genuinely surprised. "How old are you?" 27. "Why?" Adrian shook his head. "Nothing, I just thought you were younger." Beatrice paused at the door, turning to face him. "And you? You must be in your early 30s. 32, he replied, seeming amused by the question. I thought you were older." "Why?" "Because of the bitterness," she said simply. "It usually takes longer to accumulate that much." The smile disappeared from Adrian's face, replaced by a hard expression. "You don't know anything about me." "Not really," Beatrice agreed. "But I know about flowers. And I know that this orchid," she pointed to the most beautiful one in the arrangement, only blooms when it's cared for with genuine affection, not when it's just maintained. With that, she left, leaving Adrian alone with his flowers and his thoughts. In the elevator, Beatrice wondered what had gotten into her. She had never been so direct with a client, especially a client who clearly had money and influence. But something about this man intrigued her, a contradiction between the external perfection and the loneliness that she could feel emanating from him. When she arrived at the flower shop, her assistant Maya bombarded her with questions about the famous Adrian Moretti. Beatrice answered vaguely, but couldn't get those blue eyes out of her head. 3 days later, the order came again, this time specifically requesting that the owner of the flower shop make the delivery personally. Beatrice hesitated before the door of the apartment, holding an arrangement of white and red roses, the specific request for her to make. The delivery personally had intrigued her during the 3 days that had passed since her first encounter with Adrian Moretti. Part of her wondered if she shouldn't have sent Maya in her place, but curiosity won out over prudence. "Put it on the table like last time," Adrian said as soon as she entered, without turning from the window where he stood in his usual position. Beatrice placed the arrangement on the coffee table, but this time didn't immediately head for the exit. Instead, she observed the apartment more closely. It was too perfect, almost sterile. No personal objects, no photographs, no sign that a person actually lived there. "They're David Austin roses," she began, ignoring the silent order to leave. "The white ones symbolize purity and new beginnings, while the red ones..." She paused. "Well, everyone knows what the red ones symbolize." Adrian turned slowly, those blue eyes fixed on her. "You don't give up easily, do you?" "Not when something interests me," Beatrice replied, surprising herself again with her own boldness. "And I interest you?" The question came out lower, almost intimate, making Beatrice's heart race. "Your loneliness interests me," she said honestly. "It's hard to ignore." Adrian walked to the table, his fingers brushing the petals of the roses. "You think you know me based on 2 visits?" "No," Beatrice shook her head, "but I can recognize someone who's hiding." "Hiding from what?" "That I don't know. Maybe from himself." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Adrian kept touching the flowers, but his eyes didn't leave Beatrice's face. She felt exposed under that intense gaze, as if he could see through all her defenses. "You're very direct for someone who works with flowers," he said finally, "and you're very cold for someone who buys them every week," she retorted. Adrian laughed, a low, genuine sound that completely transformed his expression. "Touché. Why do you buy so many flowers?" Beatrice asked, seizing the moment of levity. The question made the smile disappear from Adrian's face. He moved, away from the table, returning to the window. "Because they're beautiful." "Lie," he turned sharply. "What's that?" "Lie," Beatrice repeated more firmly. "You can have all the beautiful things you want, your apartment is full of them, but you don't look at them, you don't appreciate them, you buy flowers for another reason." "And what reason would that be?" "Doctor." Beatrice approached the window, standing beside him. The view was truly spectacular. The blue cityscape stretched to the horizon, and the skyscrapers framed the city like a postcard. "You buy flowers because they're temporary. Because you can have something beautiful without getting attached to it." Adrian stood motionless for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the landscape. "You're wrong." "Am I?" "Yes. I buy flowers because..." He hesitated, as if he were struggling with the words. "Because I need to remind myself that beautiful things still exist." The confession came out so low that Beatrice almost didn't hear it, but there was something in his voice, a vulnerability that contrasted completely with the cold facade he maintained. "What happened to you?" she asked softly. Adrian turned to face her, and Beatrice saw something move in the depths of those blue eyes. Pain, pure and simple. "Nothing you need to know," he said, but without the harshness of before. "Maybe I don't need to," Beatrice agreed, "but I want to know." "Why?" "Because..." She stopped, searching for the right words. "Because for 3 days you've intrigued me. Because you're the most handsome man I've ever seen, but also the saddest. Because you pretend you don't care about anything, but you specifically ask me to come deliver your flowers." Adrian took a step toward her, and Beatrice felt the air between them charge with a different tension. "You're playing with fire." "I'm not a child," she replied, not backing down. "I know very well what I'm doing." "Are you sure?" He was very close now, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body, the subtle scent of his cologne. "No," Beatrice admitted, "but sometimes the best things happen when we're not sure." For a moment, she thought he was going to kiss her. The tension between them was almost palpable, and she could see the conflict in his eyes. But then he stepped back, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "You should go," he said, turning back to the window. "Why?" "Because I'm not the kind of man you think I am." "And what kind of man do you think you are?" Adrian didn't answer, but Beatrice could see the tension in his shoulders. She approached him again, placing her hand lightly on his arm. "I don't think anything," she said. "I just feel." He looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. "You don't know me? Then give me a chance to know you. Beatrice." The way he said her name made her heart skip. It was the first time he'd used it, and it sounded like a plea. "Yes?" "You're complicating everything." "Good," she said with a small smile. "I like complicating things." This time, when he approached, she didn't move away. He raised his hand, touching her face lightly, and Beatrice felt as if she were catching fire. "You don't know what you're getting into," he murmured. "Then show me," she whispered back. Adrian didn't resist. His lips met Beatrice's in a kiss that started hesitant, almost reverent, but quickly intensified. It was as if years of restraint had broken all at once. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "That was a mistake," Adrian murmured, but his hands still cupped Beatrice's face. "It was," she agreed, but didn't move away. "A wonderful mistake." In the days that followed, Beatrice began to deliver the flowers personally, and the conversations became longer. Adrian began to reveal pieces of himself, like a man who had forgotten how to be vulnerable and was slowly relearning. He spoke about his investment firm, about the deals he closed with the coldness of a predator, about a world where trust was a rare commodity. Beatrice, in turn, told about her struggle to maintain the flower shop, about the early mornings at the flower market, about the dreams she built petal by petal. "You're different from all the women I've met," Adrian said one afternoon as they walked through Central Park. It was the first time he'd left the apartment since they'd met. "How so?" "You don't want anything from me." He stopped, turning to face her. "At least not what the others wanted." "And what did the others want?" "Money, status, to be seen by my side at the right events." His voice carried a bitterness that made Beatrice's heart ache. "That's very sad," she said, touching his face. "It's reality." "Not my reality," Beatrice stepped closer. "In my reality, you're just Adrian. The man who buys flowers because he needs to remember that beautiful things exist." He kissed her right there in the park, without caring about the curious looks of others. It was as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. But it was. The following week, that Beatrice discovered who Adrian really was. She was watching the news when she saw the report about the merger between two large investment firms. Adrian appeared on the screen, impeccable in his dark suit, talking to reporters about the $50 million deal. Adrian Moretti, CEO of Moretti Investments, one of the youngest fortunes in the country, said the reporter. Beatrice felt her stomach drop. She knew he had money, but she hadn't imagined the extent of his wealth and power. Suddenly, everything made sense: the coldness, the distrust, the apartment that looked like a fortress. When she arrived at his apartment the next day with an arrangement of sunflowers, Adrian was on the phone closing some deal. His voice was hard, ruthless, completely different from the gentle man she had known. "I don't care if he's your friend," he was saying. "Business is business. Either he accepts the offer or we lose interest." Beatrice waited for him to finish the call, but something had changed. She now saw the man who destroyed smaller companies, who accumulated fortunes without caring about the consequences. "You seem different today," Adrian said, approaching her. "I saw the news," Beatrice replied directly. Adrian stopped, his expression closing off immediately. "Oh, why didn't you tell me who you really are?" "I did tell you. I work in investments." Working in investments and being the CEO of one of the biggest firms in the country are very different things. Beatrice's voice came out harsher than she intended. "And does that change anything?" "It changes everything," she said, placing the sunflowers on the table. "That report. They talked about the companies you destroyed, the people who lost their jobs because of your strategic restructurings. That's how the world works, Beatrice. You're very naive if you think business is done with flowers and poetry." "Naive?" Beatrice felt the anger rise. "Naive because I believe there are ways to do business without destroying lives?" "Some people make difficult decisions so that others can have jobs," Adrian retorted. "You live in a small, protected world. You don't understand the complexities of what I do. I understand enough to know that you use your pain as an excuse to be cruel." The accusation hit Adrian like a slap. His eyes narrowed, and Beatrice saw the cold mask return to its place. "You don't know anything about my pain. Then tell me," she took a step toward him. "Stop hiding behind that persona and tell me what hurt you so badly." For a moment, Adrian seemed to be on the verge of a confession, but then he stepped back, returning to his safe position by the window. "I think it's best if you go." "Adrian, leave, Beatrice. Go back to your world of flowers and leave mine in peace." "That's not what you want. You don't know what I want." "I know you're afraid," she said, approaching him again. "I know you've fallen for me as much as I've fallen for you, and I know that scares you." Adrian turned sharply, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous intensity. "You want to know what scares me? It's that you're right. It's that for the first time in years I've found someone who makes me want to be different, and I don't know if I can." "You can." Beatrice touched his face. "We can." He covered her hand with his, closing his eyes. "My life is complicated. There are things you don't understand, people who won't accept. Then explain them to me. Let me try to understand." Adrian opened his eyes, and Beatrice saw in them a mixture of love and despair that made her heart break. "It's not that simple." "Love never is simple," she said, "but it's worth fighting for." He kissed her then, a desperate kiss, as if it were the last. And maybe it was, Beatrice thought. Maybe he would never find the courage to fight for what they had. But she would fight. Even if he couldn't, she would fight for both of them. 2 weeks later, Beatrice woke up in Adrian's arms for the third time that week. The golden morning light filtered through the bedroom curtains, and she watched his sleeping face. There was a peace there that she rarely saw when he was awake. "You're analyzing me," Adrian murmured without opening his eyes, a lazy smile on his lips. "I'm memorizing," she corrected, tracing the outline of his jaw with her finger. "You look different when you sleep. Younger. Less armored." He opened his eyes, those deep blues that made her feel like she was drowning. "Maybe because with you I don't need the armor." "Maybe," she agreed, snuggling against his chest. "Adrian, I need to ask you something." "Why do you never take me anywhere? We always see each other here in your apartment. It's like you want to keep me a secret." Adrian tensed beneath her. "It's not that." "Then what is it?" He sighed, running his hand through his hair. "My life is very exposed, Beatrice. Everything I do becomes news. Every place I go, every person I go out with, I don't want you to be dragged into that. Shouldn't that be my choice?" "It should," he agreed, but there was something in his voice that didn't sound convincing. "But you don't understand what it's like. The press, the paparazzi, the nasty comments. I don't want you to go through that." Beatrice sat up in bed, covering her body with the sheet. "Or you're ashamed of me." "How can you say that?" Adrian sat up too, touching her face. "You're the most precious thing that's ever happened in my life." "Then why does it feel like you're hiding me?" Before he could answer, Adrian's phone rang. He hesitated, but answered when he saw the name on the screen. "Hello, Mom." Beatrice couldn't help but overhear the woman's voice on the other end of the line, clear and authoritative. "Adrian, darling, I need to talk to you about your father's birthday party. I've already confirmed your attendance and Eleanor Vanderbilt will be there. She's single again and would be a perfect match for you. Mom, I've told you I'm not interested in arranged dates. Don't be silly, Adrian. Eleanor is from an excellent family, has proper education, and would be a perfect wife for someone in your position. Besides, her father's businesses could be very helpful in expanding the company. Beatrice felt her stomach churn. She got up silently, beginning to get dressed. I need to go, Adrian said to his mother. We'll talk later. Adrian, don't forget what we talked about regarding your responsibility to the family and the business. You can't keep playing around forever. He hung up, but Beatrice was already almost dressed. Where are you going? Home, she said without looking at him. I have to open the shop. Beatrice, about my mother's conversation. You don't need to explain, she turned, forcing a smile. She's right, you have responsibilities. It's not that, isn't it? Beatrice crossed her arms. Then take me to this party. Adrian was silent, and that silence was more eloquent than any word. That's what I thought, she said, grabbing her purse. Beatrice, wait. No, Adrian, you were clear from the beginning. You told me you weren't the kind of man I thought. You were. I just didn't want to listen. In the days that followed, Beatrice threw herself into work, trying to forget the taste of Adrian's lips and the feeling of being in his arms. But it was impossible. He sent flowers, irony of ironies, with notes asking to talk. She didn't respond to any. It was Maya who brought the gossip magazine a week later. "B, you need to see this," said the assistant, placing the publication on the counter with a worried expression. The photo took up 2 pages. Adrian in an impeccable tuxedo next to a stunning blonde woman in an evening gown. The caption read, "Adrian Moretti and Eleanor Vanderbilt, the most elegant couple at businessman Robert Moretti's birthday party. Sources close to the family confirm that the two are getting to know each other better." Beatrice felt like she'd been punched in the gut. She knew she had no right to feel betrayed. They had never made anything official, never talked about exclusivity. But still, it hurt. "B, are you okay?" "I am," she lied, closing the magazine. "It's for the best. I always knew we wouldn't work out." But that night, alone in her small apartment in Greenwich Village, Beatrice cried like she hadn't cried in years, not just for the loss of Adrian, but for the loss of the dream she had built around them. The phone rang shortly after midnight. It was him. "Beatrice, I need to explain about the photo." "You don't need to explain anything," she said, her voice choked. "You made the right choice. She's perfect for you. I didn't choose anything. My mother forced me to escort her. I didn't even talk to Eleanor." "It doesn't matter, Adrian. What matters is that you preferred to be there than fight for us. That's not what it is, and it's okay. We really are from different worlds." "Beatrice, I love you." The words hung in the air like a painful confession. It was the first time he'd said it, and she had dreamed so much of hearing them. "I love you too," she whispered. "But sometimes, love isn't enough." 2 months passed in a painful silence. Beatrice had changed her delivery route, sending Maya to all the Upper East Side clients, but Adrian had cancelled the weekly flower order. The flower shop continued to operate, but there was a sadness she couldn't completely hide. It was on a rainy Tuesday that everything changed. Beatrice was closing the shop when a man in a dark suit approached. He was tall, thin, with a smile. That didn't reach his eyes. "Beatrice Santos?" "Yes, that's me. The shop is already closed, but if it's an emergency..." "It's not about flowers," the man said, handing her a card. "I'm Edward Mendez, an investigative journalist. I'd like to talk to you about Adrian Moretti." Beatrice felt a chill run down her spine. "I have nothing to say about him." "Are you sure?" "Because I have information that suggests you two had an intimate relationship. And considering what I've discovered about his business practices, your version of the story could be very valuable." "What kind of information?" Edward smiled, but there was something predatory about that smile. "Documents proving that Adrian Moretti used insider information to destroy competing companies, corruption schemes involving government officials, practices that could send him to jail. This has nothing to do with me, doesn't it? You know someone who could corroborate this information, someone who had intimate access to his life." Edward stepped closer. Listen, Beatrice, this story is going to come out anyway, with or without your cooperation. But if you help me, I can guarantee that you'll be portrayed as a victim, not as an accomplice. Accomplice to what? I don't know anything about his business. You know about the apartment, about his habits, about the people who frequented the house. Small details that can confirm our suspicions. Beatrice felt nauseous. You're asking me to betray someone's trust. I'm giving you the chance to be on the right side of history. Adrian Moretti is not the man you think he is. He's a predator, Beatrice. How many other women like you has he used and discarded? The words hit Beatrice like knives. All her insecurities, all the doubts she had tried to suffocate, came to the surface. He never used me, she said, but her voice came out less firm than she would have liked. Didn't he? Then why did you break up? Why was he accompanied by another woman a week later? Why did he never introduce you to his family? Edward tilted his head. Did he promise you anything, Beatrice? Marriage, a future together? Stop. Because men like Adrian Moretti don't marry florists. They have fun with them and then go back to their world of privilege. I said stop. Think about it, Beatrice. You have the chance to expose the truth about him, to show the world who he really is. Aren't you tired of being just a footnote in his life? Beatrice looked at the card in her hands. Part of her wanted to tear that paper and send Edward away. But another part, the hurt and humiliated part, whispered that maybe he was right. I need to think. Of course. But don't take too long. The story breaks on Friday, with or without you. When Edward left, Beatrice stood in the rain, holding the card as if it were a death sentence. She thought about the Adrian she had known, the man who bought flowers to remember that beautiful things existed. But she also thought about the ruthless CEO she had seen on the phone, the man who had chosen the family party instead of fighting for them. That night she almost called Adrian 3 times. Almost. But she always hung up before completing the call. What would she say? That a journalist was investigating him? That she had information that could help him? After 2 months of silence, she wasn't sure if he would even answer. The next morning, Maya noticed her agitation. You've been acting strange since yesterday. Did something happen? Beatrice showed the card to her friend and told her about the conversation with Edward. Maya listened to everything in silence, her expression becoming increasingly worried. B, you're not thinking of talking to this man, are you? I don't know. Maybe he's right. Maybe Adrian deserves to be exposed. From what you've told me, he was never dishonest with you. Cold, maybe. Cowardly for sure, but not dishonest. But what if he's guilty of the things Edward said? What if I'm protecting a criminal? Maya took Beatrice's hands. What if you're destroying an innocent man out of spite? Because that's what you're doing, isn't it? You're thinking of getting revenge on him for choosing his family. Maya's words hit Beatrice like a slap of reality. Was that what she was doing? Using her pain as justification for a betrayal? I don't know what to think anymore, she admitted. Then do the right thing, said Maya. Call him. Tell him about the journalist. Let him defend himself. And what if he doesn't answer? Then you'll have tried. But at least you won't carry the weight of not having given him the chance to explain himself. Beatrice looked at the phone, her heart pounding. Edward had said the story would break on Friday. Today was Wednesday. There was still time. But time for what? To save Adrian? Or to find out if he really deserved to be saved? Beatrice called Adrian that same afternoon, her hands trembling as she dialed the number she knew by heart. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. When he answered, his voice sounded distant, professional. Beatrice? There was genuine surprise in his voice. I wasn't expecting you to call. I need to talk to you, in person. It's important. About us? Not exactly. Adrian, you're in danger. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed completely. What kind of danger? I can't talk on the phone. Can I come over? Come. An hour later, Beatrice was again in the apartment that had haunted her dreams for 2 months. Adrian opened the door, and she felt her heart leap at the sight of him. He was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, but still devastatingly handsome. "Thank you for coming," he said without approaching. "You said I'm in danger?" Beatrice told him about Edward Mendez, about the accusations, about the deadline the journalist had given. Adrian listened to everything in silence, his expression growing increasingly somber. "Corruption and insider trading," he murmured when she finished. "Son of a bitch." "So it's true?" Adrian turned to her, his eyes flashing. "Do you believe it's true?" "I don't know," Beatrice said honestly. "I don't know what to believe about you anymore." "No, it's not true. At least not the way he's presenting it." Adrian ran his hands through his hair. "But there are documents that could be interpreted maliciously. Contracts I signed when I was starting out, before I fully understood the implications." "What kind of contracts?" "Agreements with politicians. Nothing illegal, but ethically questionable." He approached the window. "When you're young and ambitious, you sometimes agree to play by rules you shouldn't. Did you do something wrong or not?" "I made choices I'm not proud of, but I didn't commit crimes." Beatrice stepped closer to him. "Edward said the story breaks on Friday, that you should prepare yourself. He wanted you to confirm information about me?" "He did. About the apartment, about your habits, about the people who came here." "And are you going to do that?" The question hung in the air between them. Beatrice could see the tension in Adrian's body, the way he awaited her answer. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to protect you, but another part is still hurt. Because of the party, because of Eleanor, because of everything. Because you hid me, because you didn't fight for us, because you chose your family instead of me." Adrian turned to face her. "Do you think it was easy for me? Do you think I didn't suffer too?" "Then why didn't you fight?" "Because I didn't know how." His voice came out louder, full of frustration. "Because I never had to fight for anything, Beatrice. Everything was always given to me. Money, position, women. I never needed to fight for love because I had never felt real love before. And now? Now it's too late. Why? Because you'll never forgive me. Because even if I fight now, you'll always doubt me. You'll always wonder if I'm the man you loved or the predator that journalist described." Beatrice felt tears burn her eyes. "Maybe. Then do what you think you should do. If cooperating with him is what makes you feel better, then do it. You're not going to fight. I'm going to fight the accusations. I have lawyers, I have resources, but I'm not going to fight for you, not again. Why? Because you don't trust me, and without trust, there's nothing to fight for." Beatrice left the apartment with a broken heart. Adrian was right. She didn't completely trust him, but he was also wrong. There was something to fight for, yes, there was the love she still felt for him, even after everything. The next day, she called Edward. "Did you change your mind?" "Maybe, but first I want to see this evidence you have." "Of course, let's meet." Edward chose a discreet cafe in Little Italy. When Beatrice arrived, he was already there, a folder on the table. "Before I show you this," he said, "I need you to understand something. Adrian Moretti is a dangerous man. He's destroyed careers, families, entire companies. You were lucky to get out when you did. Show me the evidence." Edward opened the folder, revealing documents, photographs, call logs. Beatrice examined everything, trying to understand the implications. "This here," said Edward, pointing to a document, "is a contract between Adrian's company and a construction firm. 3 days after they signed, the construction firm won a multi-million-dollar bid with the city. Coincidence? Could be. And this?" He showed a photograph of Adrian leaving a restaurant with a man Beatrice didn't recognize. "That's the city's Public Works Commissioner. They've met 5 times in the last year. That doesn't prove anything. Not individually, but the pattern is clear." Edward leaned over the table. "Beatrice, can you confirm that Adrian received frequent visitors at home? Meetings that took place outside the office?" Beatrice hesitated. She had seen Adrian receive some people at the apartment, but she had never paid much attention. They were always quick professional meetings. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Can you describe these people?" "They were businessmen, always very well-dressed, always serious." Edward smiled, making notes. "Perfect. Anything else? Strange phone calls, documents he hid?" Beatrice thought of the times she had found Adrian tense after certain calls, the occasions when he quickly put away papers when she arrived. However, he sometimes got nervous after some phone calls. Can you be more specific? And then Beatrice realized what she was doing. She was building a case against Adrian based on vague impressions and assumptions. She was allowing her hurt to turn her into something she had never been. No, she said, standing up, I can't do this. Beatrice, wait. No, this is wrong. You want me to destroy a man based on what? On coincidences? On evidence? On speculation? She grabbed her purse. You're going to publish your story anyway. Do it without me. You'll regret this choice, shouted Edward as she was already leaving. When you find out who Adrian really is, you'll regret it. But Beatrice already knew who Adrian was. He was the man who bought flowers to remember that beautiful things existed. The man who had fallen in love with her, who had been vulnerable in her arms. And even if he had made mistakes, even if he had been cowardly, he didn't deserve to be destroyed for revenge. Now she needed to decide if she was going to fight for him, or if she was going to let Edward do his dirty work alone. Beatrice spent the night tossing and turning, thinking about what Edward had said. Beatrice called Adrian that same afternoon, a clarity she hadn't felt in months washing over her. She knew exactly what she needed to do. First, she called Adrian. The story breaks today, she said without preamble. Edward Mendez is going to try to destroy you. I know. My lawyers are already prepared. Adrian, I need to tell you something. I met with him yesterday. He wanted me to confirm information about you. The silence on the other end was icy. And did you confirm? Almost. But I realized he's not interested in the truth. He just wants a sensational story. Why are you telling me this? Because I love you. And because I know you're not the man he's trying to paint. Beatrice, let me finish. I spent 2 months angry at you, feeling used and discarded. But yesterday, seeing that evidence, I realized that what we have is real. And if it's real, it's worth fighting for. You don't need to. Yes, I do. I need to because you were right. I didn't trust you. I let my insecurities speak louder than my heart. But now I want to fix that. How? Meet me at your company in an hour. And Adrian, trust me. Beatrice hung up and immediately called Maya. I need your help, she said, and I need you to close the shop today. B, what are you planning? Something I should have done a long time ago. An hour later, Beatrice was in the lobby of Moretti Investments, an imposing building on Wall Street. She was carrying a basket of flowers, orchids, roses, and sunflowers, and wearing her best dress, the blue one Adrian always said brought out her eyes. I'm here to see Mr. Moretti, she told the receptionist. He's in a meeting with his lawyers. Can I take a message? Tell him it's Beatrice Santos. Tell him I'm here to fight. A few minutes later, Adrian appeared in the elevator, accompanied by 3 men in suits. He stopped when he saw her, his expression unreadable. Beatrice, what are you doing here? I came to give you this. She held out the basket of flowers. And I came to give you a chance. What chance? The chance to introduce me to the people who matter in your life. The chance to show that you're not ashamed of me. Adrian looked at the lawyers, then at her. Are you sure? I am. But before. Beatrice turned to the men. Gentlemen, my name is Beatrice Santos. I own a flower shop in Greenwich Village, and I've been in love with your boss for 4 months. A story broke today trying to destroy his reputation, and I came here to say that I know Adrian Moretti's character better than any journalist. The lawyers exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. Adrian stepped closer to her. Beatrice, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She took his hand. I need to because you're the man who buys flowers to remember that beautiful things exist. Because you're kind to those who have nothing to offer in return. Because you fell in love with an ordinary florist. And that terrified you. Not because I wasn't enough, but because you didn't think you were worthy of being loved. The story is already out, said one of the lawyers. It needs to be our priority now. No, said Adrian, not taking his eyes off Beatrice. My priority is right here. He kissed her right there, in the middle of the lobby, in front of the lawyers and employees. When they separated, Beatrice was smiling. Now, she said, now we can face anything. In the weeks that followed, Edward's story caused an initial uproar, but official investigations found no evidence of crimes. The coincidences that the journalist had presented turned out to be exactly that, coincidences. Adrian suffered some damage in the press, but his reputation remained intact. More importantly, he and Beatrice faced everything together. She accompanied him to events, met his family, who, to the surprise of both of them, received her better than they expected. Adrian's mother, after the initial resistance, was charmed by Beatrice's determination. "She's good for you," she told her son. "She makes you seem more human." 6 months later, Beatrice was in Adrian's apartment, arranging a new bouquet of flowers, white lilies, a symbol of new beginnings. He came home from work and found her humming. "You seem happy," he said, hugging her from behind. "I am happy. I received a special order today." "Oh yeah? From whom?" "From a very demanding businessman. He wants me to provide flowers for the rest of his life." Adrian laughed, turning her to face him. "That businessman has good taste." "He does, and luck too." Beatrice wrapped her arms around his neck. "Because this florist decided to accept the order. Even though it's such a long job?" "Especially because it's such a long job." Adrian kissed her, a kiss that tasted of promises and shared futures. When they separated, he held her face in his hands. "I love you, Beatrice Santos." "I love you too, Adrian Moretti. And this time, I won't let you hide." "I don't intend to hide. Not from you, not from us." Outside, the sun set over the city, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. But inside the apartment, between flowers and promises, Beatrice and Adrian had found their own light, one that no storm could extinguish.